Hi guys, it's Mr. Scotty Pie here. In today's video, I'm going to do an essay where we talk about the first series of Doctor Who, the highs, the lows. I'm going to be doing essays for all the new Doctor Who series, that's Christopher Eccleston up until Jodie Whittaker. The characters, maybe go back and do certain essays on specific episodes, make a bit of a deep dive, see what makes them great or makes them awful. So if you want to hit the subscribe button, just so you can see the videos when they come out, if you do enjoy this kind of format, and if that's something that would interest you, that'd be absolutely fantastic. If you want to hit the like button, if that's something that you'd like to see more of, or dislike if you want to see less of it. If you do like it though, if you do hit the like button, it does mean that it shows the YouTube algorithm that this is something that other Doctor Who fans might also enjoy watching, or people who enjoy this type of video. Please also remember, this is all just my own opinions. I'm not saying that you should feel the same. So is anything that you do agree with or disagree with in this video, tell me in the comments and let's have a conversation. I love interacting with you guys, so yeah, let's have a chat about it, a civilized one. So let's get your leather jackets on, jump in a TARDIS. Let's go back to 2005. So after a 9-year absence since any Doctor Who fan got anything new on the television relating to Doctor Who, we found ourselves with a brand new series. I was 14 when this was first aired. I hadn't watched a single episode of Doctor Who before, but with parents that did, basically they watched it when it was originally aired, I was always aware of it, and so I was there in 2005, sat in front of the TV, ready to watch it. I was a sci-fi and fantasy fan beforehand, so it didn't take much persuading but I guess I didn't realise that this show was about to spark a lifetime interest in the show. The Doctor in this series is the 9th incarnation of the Doctor, and that is played by Christopher Eccleston. So I think it's time to talk about the 9th Doctor. A dramatic actor by trade, doing many TV roles and serious roles in such shows as in My Friends in the North, Cracker, Let Him Have It, as well as many movie roles such as Shallow Grave, 28 Days Later, Gone in 60 Seconds. So when Russell T Davies, who was announced as a showrunner for the new reincarnation of Doctor Who, got an email from Christopher Eccleston expressing his interest to play the Doctor, he couldn't contain his surprise. If you'd like to know more about how this all came about with Christopher Eccleston's thought pattern behind this role, I would recommend reading his recently released autobiography, I Love the Bones of You, a book that I have actually done a review for on this channel. Hopefully a card will pop up either one of these sides. Or if you don't want to press that just yet, I'll stick a link on the end card at the end of the video. Yeah, give it a go, and the book is fantastic. Little spoiler for my review. So Christopher Eccleston, he took on this role to prove to his fans, to his doubters, that he could take on a show like Doctor Who and to show that the Doctor can be smart, serious, angry, fun and adventurous. And due to his action ability, it was done effortlessly. I'm happy to admit at this point that I'm still a big fan of Christopher Eccleston as a Doctor, and I'm still to this day sad we never got to see where he could have taken the character if given the chance of further series. But the standout aspects of Eccleston's Doctor, in my opinion, are the monologues. He had one once every episode or two, and I'm sure that's credit to Russell T Davies for the writing as well, but the words had so much more weight put to them because of the performance by Christopher Eccleston. He made you stand up and take notice. I think this was unmatched by any other actor until Peter Capaldi. He got similar speeches later on, but who came on top is a whole different argument. Maybe with another video. In the first episode, though, we met. It was called Rose, where we met the first companion of the new series, Rose, played by Billie Piper, a former singer turned actor, and who was at the time quite early on in their acting career. I feel a companion for Doctor Who should always play the part of the audience, to ask the Doctor the questions we want to know, the answers to, or to try and deconstruct the fanatical world that's going on around us, to help us, the audience, digest it all and believe it without being lost in all the science, and try and make sense of the Doctor's ramblings he goes off on sometimes, which we all love to watch, but at times hard to follow. I feel Rose does this very well in this series. She also seems like a bit of a follow-up to Ace, who is the 7th Doctor's companion for his later series. Because she never played the damsel in distress that some of the earlier companions might have done. But, and I mean, she's there willing to stand by the Doctor's side and fight. Not to the same extent as Ace, but I'd say more to a believable level, because Ace was quite violent. She always carried a baseball bat and explosives. Maybe not what you'd see in everyday London. But we can watch it and agree that would do more of the same thing in Rose's shoes than we would in Ace's. That nowadays she's more relatable, in my opinion. So anyway, back to the first episode, which is Rose. The first episode aired on the BBC on the 26th of March 2005. It was watched by over 10 million people and was the most watched episode since a Tom Baker era series. I guess everyone was intrigued to see what was going to happen with the new show. Us new fans were first exposed to the Doctor in a department store. Seeing that Rose who is played by Billie Piper, was about to be attacked by mannequins, or the Autons as they're called in this story. When we see this mysterious man grab her hand and tells her to run, that is when you first met the Doctor, and that's when you were intrigued already by who was this hero who came out of nowhere to save the day already. We exposed the scene where Mickey, Rose's dopey boyfriend, becomes plastic himself in the worst CGI I think has ever been put to screen. Noel Clarke is a very talented actor, and we've seen some great scenes throughout not just the first series, but he's run in Doctor Who. But the first episode is not one of them. His time where he becomes plastic is laughable, and not in a good way. From the acting, the writing, and the CGI creates many cringe moments. But in this episode, we do get to meet Clive, who is looking into the life of times of the Doctor. And we learn that he has been at many notable events, the Doctor that is. He was there at the Kennedy assassination. The whole scene of Rose and Clive in his shed is fantastic development into the Doctor for the first time for the watcher. If you're a first time watching, you don't know his past, as it creates this mystery around the character that makes you not want to know about him, but need to know more about him. I feel Mark Benton's character, Clive, is a standout part in this episode, and I wished he got more time to tell his story. And I still wish that the audio dramas done by Big Finish would take this character and delve into it, so we're going to know more about who he is and his searches into the Doctor. I think that'd be really interesting. But sadly, Clive meets his end while shopping with his family at the hands of one of these mannequin autons. But this does tell new fans from the get-go that in this show, nobody is safe. The climax of this episode finds the nesting consciousness, which is leading the Autons, below the London Eye as they use this giant satellite dish. As they are now defeated by the Doctor using anti-plastic. I felt this when I was 14, and at 29 I still think this is the worst and cheapest villain death that Doctor Who's ever done. I think I would have preferred at this point if the sonic screwdriver just zapped it or something and exploded, because the idea of anti-plastic still makes me cringe, and how much of a cop-out this ending was. I feel this episode was the weakest of the series. I'm aware this episode had a lot to do. It had to introduce the audience to so many new ideas, and the overall story had to be simple. But I felt with the acting, it was the weakest at certain points. Even though Christopher Eccleston shined with that monologue about what's going on in his head. I know the world is travelling at so many miles, and I can feel it. I think it's amazing. I think that's one of the standout monologues of the series. I love it. It really makes you want to know more about the Doctor and who he is and what is going on in his head. But when he wrestled with an Auton hand, that was embarrassing to watch. But then we moved on to The End of the World, the second episode in the series, where the Doctor takes Rose to the year 5 billion to watch the end of the Earth. With this whole episode taking place on a spaceship and many new life forms for the first time. But rather than in the previous episode where I thought the CGI was bad, I think this was a lot better. Because there was less of it. More people in costumes rather than CGI monsters, such as the nesting consciousness and the Autons and Plastic Mickey, which took you out of the show. Costume monsters done well doesn't date. They can always look good. Just look at the original Star Wars movies compared to the prequels. That's my reference for that. The CGI looks dated. The costume monsters still look good in my opinion in Star Wars, and I think it shows. We get to meet the face of Bob for the first time. Not that this time was made for me such of an important character that he would go on to be in later episodes and series. We also get to meet the last human alive, Cassandra, who's played by Zoe Wanamaker. Or voiced by Zoe Wanamaker. A CGI character, but she didn't look too bad. I'm not sure how they did that, but it didn't look as cheap. Even though this story was an easy one, where you saw the twists being that Cassandra plotted it all, the way it was shot was great. And I feel the music of Murray Gold really got you to feel the emotions of everything will end. And one day, somber, with also hope, that we the species survive and we strive throughout the universe. For me, the music captures that so well. Not just in this episode, but the whole series. The music is faultless. And I mean faultless. There's not a single note I would change. For me, this episode was the point where I knew the show could be something amazing. Well, after Rose, I felt it could be a bit fun and a bit childish and something to have some enjoyment with. But I found it all changed with the very scene that Jabba, the tree woman, burnt to death due to the heat of the room. I felt it was really willing to go places that other primetime Saturday night TV shows just not willing to go. And I loved that. We then went back in time for our first historical episode, The Young Quiet Dead. The first episode of the series, not to be written by Russell T Davies, but by Mark Gatiss, who would go on to write for Doctor Who for many years to come, and also was the co-writer of Sherlock. In this episode, we meet Charles Dickens, who is played by Simon Callow, as he's in Cardiff doing a performance for A Christmas Carol. We also meet two morticians whose dead keep waking up. This is an episode that, as a person watching the third ever episode of Doctor Who, believed you know where this was going, but once hearing this, when you hear the story of the angels, as Gwyneth calls them, but are actually called the Gelf, are just looking for somewhere to live, the Doctor will save them, find them somewhere to go, and in the universe or on Earth. But when they turn and they kill Gwyneth and reveal they're actually here to take over the world, it shows how dark and a twist. And to me, it showed that this series is willing to go to some scary places. Obviously, long-time Doctor Who fans will know that this is part of the show and they like to frighten you. But as a teenager watching a family show, it took me by surprise. And in a very good way. I also thought that the Doctor would save Gwyneth. Though we have seen in previous episodes that they're happy to kill off the side characters, if you will. But when we leave her dead, really opened my mind to how this show wants you to believe that it's like real life. Not everyone survives. And that is something that, after many re-watches of this series and this show, really makes me still love this episode. While I like Rose when it started, I love the end of the world, the nostalgia. It's been the first time I really took notice of this show. This is one I love for just being a good episode. I think Simon Callow is a horribly underrated actor. He's done a lot of, he's done a lot more stage work, and I've actually seen him on stage working, and he's amazing. But when you see him on TV and movies, you just don't speak about him. But I think his portrayal of Dickens, from the point at the beginning where he's sad and thoughtful, through his arc where he leaves the episode thinking anything is possible and our life is great. As a history fan, I'm always more drawn to the historical episode of Doctor Who. And I think that the way this episode presented was where my love of these episodes began. We move on to the first double episode of new Doctor Who, which is The Aliens of London and World War III. The episode starts with Rose and the Doctor returning home to London, where a spaceship crashes into Big Ben, which is still probably one of the most iconic scenes in the history of Doctor Who. Maybe not just New Who, but all of Doctor Who. It was a very iconic scene, in my opinion. It showed to the audience that everything is about to change. The world will know that aliens exist. We find out that the government know who the Doctor is when Rose's mom, Jackie, tells them she knows of an alien with a blue box. And this continues to create the mystery of the Doctor for the fans of the new show. I've always liked the shot where the Doctor and Rose are in the back of the police car. The Doctor can bask in his ego as Rose is impressed that the government not only knows who he is, but respects him and his opinions. I find it mirrors the way the new fans' reactions are to this scene, as well as he's thinking the Doctor is human. You know, we can see him, the way he thinks, that he thinks is cool, and he's trying to play it off. but failing to do so due to his ego and the excitement of it all in front of Rose. Where I begin to lose my love of these two episodes is when we meet the aliens, the Slitheen. I find even though the characters are designed well in terms of their motives, where they're not just trying to kill life for the sake of it, they're doing it so they can salve the Earth. It's not lazy writing, because just killing them would be lazy writing. When they have financial gain and this motive, it's interesting, but then that's taken all away by fart gags and fat jokes. I'm not sure if it was to attract a younger audience, with the last episode being darker of the series, but I know myself, I've never really found fart jokes funny, so this may just be me. But it wasn't as if it was one or two gags. It was over and over for 2 whole episodes. It very much put me off these episodes, and I felt there could have been so much more. I also felt this episode was only a double episode because the BBC bosses told them it needed to be. So it was stretched out as one. If they trimmed the fat, no pun intended, then they could have been a much more punchy and streamlined episode. Cut out the fart and the fat jokes and just stuck to the alien motives, the peril and the action. Because these episodes did present some good peril, the Slitheen trying to attack Jackie and Mickey was exciting to see, and how they would escape. The vinegar was finding how to kill them, but did they really need to explode in their faces? Another cheap gag. The Harriet Jones character was good and interesting, but became annoying at the end. By the time she'd constantly been telling everyone who she was, but I thought the Prime Minister's PA dying was another shock death moment. I know I will always say that I was shocked by the deaths, even though Doctor Who now killed a side character every single episode, pretty much. It still caught me. This is not an episode I really look forward to when I'm rewatching this series, but it isn't one that I skip over either, because I feel it does have some redeeming qualities. And that for me is mainly the Doctor Who. He's mainly the Doctor in these great episodes. He's great in these episodes, sorry. How he takes charge of the situation, stares danger, is appealing. I like the scene with the pig alien in the hospital, which I feel is dark. When he is shot, and the doctor tells a soldier he was just scared. Gives me goosebumps to this day. And I've rewatched this series countless times, and it still gives me goosebumps. And even though the CGI isn't great by today's standards, I'm okay with how the Slitheen look in these episodes. They look a bit cheap maybe, but I quite like it. We now move on to an episode where we meet our first classic Doctor Who villain. We move into the episode Dalek. Even never watching an episode of Doctor Who before, I knew what a Dalek was. It was the Doctor's ultimate foe. And you looked forward to seeing this one for the first time. You couldn't wait to see one. I loved the whole museum scene at the beginning of the episode, where we see trinkets through Doctor Who's past. We see a Cyberman helmet that sparks me hopes of future episodes of the series we might see where these trinkets are from. My only gripe with the episode are the characters. Henry Van Straten, Adam Mitchell, and all the others working his underground base are incredibly two-dimensional. Sorry, they're one-dimensional. I wish they were two-dimensional. I don't care about them at all. You were supposed to hate Van Straten and feel sorry for Adam, but I don't care. I just don't care about them. We meet the Dalek in darkness, but we fear him, and the fear is built through the Doctor's fear. You've spent 5 episodes watching this man, not shy away from anything. He faces every danger like a brave hero. He's not scared of anything. Become a quivering wreck. Makes you know that the Dalek is something to be very scared of. And again, Eccleston does this very well. But I think this episode really shows how dark Doctor Who can be. For the first time, about how much the Time War is constantly alluded to by the Doctor in this whole series has messed him up. When for the first time we see this sadistic version of the Doctor, when he orders the Dalek to kill himself. I remember watching that and still think the same to this day, that this show, Doctor is not two-dimensional, he's not one-dimensional, he's not just something simple. He's not just his hero, but he's carrying around this darkness and anger deep inside of his heart. It makes you believe in him more. In my opinion, as I get bored of just single one-dimensional characters, and the Doctor at times fell into this pit slightly by the writing. He always knew everything and always saved the day, but now we saw him scared, angry and evil, because there is no denying that ordering someone to purposely intend them to murder themselves is an evil thing to do, even if it's the pure evil itself. And I believe that scene saves this episode, because with that badly written and acted supporting cast, they almost lost the introduction to one of the most famous Doctor Who villains. I was not a fan of the flying Dalek when it lifted up for the stairs, but I understood that it's something that needed to happen, or else they would have just seemed weak. And they needed his aura of fear and of almost maybe invincibility that made you want to watch on and find out how the Doctor was going to defeat them. I think this episode would have been benefited more by being a double episode, more than a Slitheen episode, because if you gave it more time to develop the supporting cast, you could feel something for them and the Daleks, to build that fear even more and make that suicide scene feel more impactful. Could have been something incredible for a whole double episode in my eyes. We're going to another space station episode now in The Long Game. Sadly, they've brought Adam Mitchell from the previous episode along with them for this adventure, who is not only one-dimensional, but a very predictable storyline for him, but also adds many tablespoons of annoying to his character as he spends this episode using future technology to try and make himself rich back home in his own time. God, it's not speaking his character again. In this episode, we are taken to the year 200,000, where a new telecast spaceship is doing odd things. It's overly warm and everyone wants to be promoted to the floor 500. This is not a complicated storyline in the slightest, but at the same time it works. Nothing is unpredictable, but it's enjoyable. I think that's all this episode is, enjoyable. Simon Pegg stars in this episode, and he plays a bit of an over-the-top evil character who worked for the mighty Jagrafess. I'd like to talk more about this episode, but it's a very one-dimensional episode. That if someone told me it's their least favourite episode, I would totally understand, without an explanation. But my personal experience is one that I won't be in a hurry to skip. I mean, if we ignore the Adam-shaped disaster of this episode, it's one I'm happy to sit back and enjoy as a bit of sci-fi. It's nothing special, but I like it. Do we have to talk about the horrendous ending where they drop Adam off home? The cheap attempt at humour at the hole in his head? No? Thank God. Let's move on to the next episode then, which is Father's Day, where Rose goes back in time to stop her dad from dying, and then messes up the whole timeline, and therefore Reapers come to kill everyone. This one should be simple storyline, but there are some other plot points that at times make the storyline not only slightly confusing, but contradictory. This story explores that you can't travel across your own timeline and meet yourself, or else the Reapers come and, well, reap. But does this discount all the times in the past and future episodes where the Doctor meets himself at different regenerations? I mean, if there is a law that says that this is fine, I would generally love to know. And please let me know in the comments. Also, I'm sure that this law is pretty much forgotten about and brushed under the carpet many times during later episodes. Forgetting that I also didn't like the Reapers. I thought they didn't look intimidating. They were just angry pterodactyls. And that's the reasoning. And their whole reasoning for being isn't fully explained. I know they're there whenever you change past events that shouldn't be changed. Like the Doctor does this, but has never happened again. But why? I would like some backstory, because these could have been a great villain. Well, they had a guardian-like aspect to protect the past. Then wouldn't even be a villain. And wouldn't have that made it more interesting if they were just guardians, not doing evil, just protecting not just history but the universe? But no, we don't know. I would love to, but I enjoyed the interaction between Rose and her dad. And when he found out that he was a dad, I thought Rose was trying to suggest that he was a great dad. And his response when he admitted that he wasn't who she wants him to be was very powerful to me. It really made him a strong character. A man who knows his own faults and owns up to them. Even when the person he loves most in the whole world wants to ignore them. He's strong to me and brave in a whole other way. And I enjoyed this scene a lot. I also liked the Rose and Doctor dynamic in this episode. The Doctor blames Rose for all the death that has happened in this episode, but Rose is too stubborn to admit it. And she's too stubborn to admit that she was wrong because she got her dad back. And that's truthful to someone of her age and in her position. It didn't feel cheap. And when he forgave her, because it wasn't like all is now forgotten, but he just wanted an apology, an acceptance of her mistakes. And she did that, so he forgave her. I believe one of the stand-up moments of this episode, it's only a short scene, but the last scene where Jackie was talking to a young Rose, telling her the day her husband died. And the change of story from the beginning to now, which included Rose being by her dad's side, is emotional. as you know, as the viewer, that he's died in the arms of his daughter is fantastic. Next we move on to another double episode, which is The Empty Child and The Doctor Dances, or as universally known as Are You My Mommy episodes, for obvious reasons. These are the first episodes written by Stephen Moffat, who would go on to become the showrunner of Doctor Who between season 5 and season 10. These are the double episodes taken place during the Blitz of World War II. And his episode didn't scare you, then you're a braver person than I am. Rose is lost early on in the episodes, which leads to her meeting Captain Jack Harkness, played by John Barrowman, a time agent who we find out was a con man trying to sell an empty capsule minutes before it's blown up. Meanwhile, the Doctor is trying to unlock the mystery of the empty child, a young boy with a gas mask for a face, hunting down a group of homeless children. This is a dark double episode, and it touches on greed, homelessness, abandonment issues, and love. It's scary and so well written. Captain Jack at first seems cocky and cheesy, but as his episode goes on, you learn about his motivations and his secret becomes more interesting. But his greatest moment in his episodes comes right at the end, where he has to face death. And I think you start to discover who he is. And he obviously becomes a recurring character throughout Doctor Who and his spin-off series Torchwood. We discover his many layers and becomes an amazing character in my opinion. But in these episodes he can be quite one-dimensional and predictable. But on rewatches, this doesn't bother you as you know what his characters will go on to become. And with him not being the main focus of this episode, merely a side story until he meets the main story, it's not your focus, it's more of a comic relief to the trauma happening around everyone. I believe what makes these episodes so special though is the setting. Putting these episodes in the backdrop of World War II during the Blitz added so much more to this episode. Tension, peril, pacing, and fear. Because you're aware the very real threat that is happening around, which isn't to do with this story. It makes you aware there's a constant danger that everyone is living in. Imagine this episode took place nowadays around the city of London. It just wouldn't have the same impact. And you just wouldn't have that fear, that scare, that human, very human scare. And I thought that was a genius move by Stephen Moffat. Richard Wilson, who plays a doctor, not the doctor, a doctor, supplies so much of the heart of this episode, as he's a doctor who never left his patient's side. No matter what they were doing or anything was happening, he will protect them. He's a great character and deserves so much more credit for this episode. Nancy was the leader of the homeless gang and eventually find out he's the mother of the empty child is brilliant. As the authoritarian figure and the strong woman, the mother to the kids with unshakable bravery. But you found out she is scared as everyone else, and she hides it to make the kids look braver. It's brilliant. The episode is a glimpse to what Stephen Moffat was good at, and that is writing multi-dimensional characters, from the main character to the smaller character, with villains that have motive. It's something that you understand. And the final scene where the Doctor dances with Rose and with Jack, it's a beautiful scene. And really shows that a Doctor, no matter how hard his exterior seems to be, is all heart and love. And he loves to love. But also this episode has this amazing line of, everybody lives. Just this once, everybody lives. Delivered perfectly by Christopher Eccleston, as he shows that no matter how much darkness there is in the world, either in the series, as the side characters die often, in the setting of World War II, where there's no hope, shows that there is hope. And sometimes that hope becomes a reality. It's a fantastic set of episodes and a standout for the series. We then move on to Boomtown, where we meet the Slitheen, Margaret Blaine, who's now the mayor of Cardiff. Thankfully, we no longer have fat jokes and fart gags, but more of a woman desperate to be home with her family. This episode for me has more low points than high points. The fact that Margaret didn't kill the woman because she was pregnant, but the last time was happy to kill everyone, was a bit out of character for me. I'm aware this was supposed to show progression and also a longing for home and family, but to me felt forced by Russell T Davies, who wrote this episode, to make you feel for her. I like the dinner scene with her and the doctor. Even though nothing really happens in this scene, it's entertaining, and I look forward to getting to in this episode, just because of the joy of the back and forth. I think the true standout of this episode, though, is Mickey. He comes racing to Rose at the drop of a hat, but he reveals that he's met someone else. And he reveals that he has to explain his struggles being left alone for months on end, while she goes off travelling, and he's expected to be there waiting whenever she gets back, every single time. I think this is deep, and I think it's believable. And it's a feeling and well written as he struggles to tell the woman he loves that he is struggling. I also love the ending where the Slitheen is not killed, which would have been lazy writing to a character that have been building for 3 episodes. I think the last one trying to make you feel for her, but the TARDIS turns it back into an unhatched egg so she can start her life again. I think this is original and opens up many more avenues of storytelling for her and the character. This is not an episode that I skip, but it is on the weakest side of the series for me. But it does have some enjoyable moments, and some moments that I do generally praise it for. We're then moving on to the final double episode, Bad Wolf and the Parting of the Ways. I feel this is very much the story in 2 halves. The first is a storyline of them being in the game shows. I feel this is a cheap way of thinking that the audience will find it entertaining. But the point at the TV is saying, oh, I know that show. And for me, it falls flat. And on rewatches many years later, it feels very dated, as most of these shows don't even exist anymore. As soon as they break out of these shows is when the episode picks up for me. We find out who they are on Satellite 5, the same satellite as the Long Game episode. But now it only shows game shows that kills people for losing. We find out that the station is now being run by Daleks, and that's where the real peril of the show is. I feel this show feels real when the Daleks do eventually invade the satellite, and the tension is truly there. The character of Linda, with a Y, is well written. She starts off quite annoying, but by the end of the episodes, you're sad when she dies, and wishes she could have gone on adventures with the Doctor, maybe as part of the TARDIS team. I feel Jack's speech to the contestants at the basement when asking for support is great. When he says, when you hear us up there dying, it was just chilling to me. It was very well performed by John Barrowman. But when the Daleks go down to the basement, when everyone, including ourselves as the audience, thought they were going to go up to fight the Doctor, and the sounds of shooting and killing by the Daleks is haunting. And well done to cause fear for the Daleks. And this shows that they're not here to take over, but they're here to murder everyone. I loved it when the Doctor sent Rose home, as he felt very in character for Christopher Eccleston's Doctor, as a protector and a father figure to Rose. By this point, he is willing to break his own heart to save her. He wants us by his side, but this could mean the saviour of people, as one extra hand could help her. But he doesn't want to risk this. He doesn't want to risk her. And this is brilliantly beautiful to watch. She struggles to accept a readjustment that she can no longer travel with the Doctor and he's about to die. And it's very well done. And I think this is where Billie Piper shines as an actor in this series. I didn't like how she was able to open the TARDIS so easily with the crane, but I also understood that this needed to happen to move the story forward, and that's fine. And the realisation that Bad Wolf has been following her across time and space that led her to this point. I remember watching this for the first time, and I couldn't believe they all led to this. I thought it was genius. I've rewatched many movies and television shows since, and now I understand that this isn't maybe amazing as I first thought it was, but I still love Bad Wolf throughout this series. And when she takes the heart of the TARDIS and opens a door on Satellite 5, and she's all powerful, but she's also crying, it's so strong to me. It also shows it hurts beyond belief to have the TARDIS inside of her, but she doesn't care because she wants to save the Doctor. It's great for me. I do not think it was cheap to kill everyone the way they did just because they turned to dust, because the TARDIS energy we've always been told is so powerful. It almost doesn't diminish it at all. I love this ending. And I still find it emotional when Rose opens the door as the Bad Wolf. I'm sad that Christopher Eccleston had to say goodbye, but I love the regeneration scene. I think it explains to new viewers about what is about to happen, what it being a goodbye to Christopher Eccleston. I won't talk about the tennis casting in this video, as I'll leave that to the essay on Series 2. But as I said earlier, and I would have loved to have seen where Christopher Eccleston took this character of the Doctor through further series, but that wasn't meant to be. I'm not talking about the behind the scenes things that led to this in this essay, because that's not what this is about. This is about the season 1 as a whole. And as a whole, I really enjoyed this series. It's not perfect, but I think it has some very strong episodes, and I'd rank it very highly in my favourite series. I feel Billie Piper doesn't come into her own until the second series, but as a character, but he's strong, and I feel the levity that Christopher Eccleston brings to the Doctor makes this a great series. And I will always come back to this series for that reason. Thank you for watching this video. If you made it to the end, you are fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I will be doing a further series, so please do subscribe so you can see when they come out. And if you agree or disagree with any of my comments, let's start a discussion in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. It means the world to me. Thank you.